If we are celebrating the feast of the presentation of the Lord on this day, that means that Christmas was 40 days ago, which then means we only have 325 more days to wait until the blessed holiday comes full circle once again. Today's feast day, like many special feast days, are very theologically rich, and the presentation, is no different. And so, in celebrating these different aspects of the Lord's life liturgically, the church is wanting to present to our minds and hearts some importance of the theology that is being presented. The mysteries once hidden that are now being revealed. There's an awful lot of layers to today's gospel narrative of the presentation, and so I'm going to confine myself to just one of them. But it requires a little background. And that background for today's gospel can be found in the book of Exodus. We go back to Israel's slavery in Egypt, and we remember that leading up to their deliverance, God visited the land with 10 specific plagues. The 10th plague was the most terrifying and horrific of them all. God would send his destroying angel to slaughter every firstborn male among the Egyptians. And while the destroying angel was busy, the Israelites were in their homes, eating their paschal lamb in preparation for their flight out of Egypt. Now, there's something interesting that happened in this covenantal relationship between God and the Israelites. And he told Moses that on account of the slaughter of the firstborn among the Egyptians, that all firstborn males of the Israelites would therefore be consecrated to him. They would become his property. And in the Old Testament, consecration means specifically ordained to the service of divine worship. In other words, they're priests. But now we need to fast forward a few chapters in the book of Exodus, and we look at the debacle with the golden calf. And I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail because we certainly could. But suffice it to say that after the debacle with the golden calf, God took the priesthood away from the firstborn males of the Israelites and gave it to the Levites, because through it all they were the ones faithful to him. And so we see the birth of the Levitical priesthood. But there's a caveat. There's always a caveat, right? Even though the priesthood was taken away from the firstborn of the Israelites and given to the Levites, God still considered the firstborn of all the Israelites to still be his property. And as such, the parents of every firstborn male had to redeem their son from the Lord. In other words, buy him back. And that came at a cost of 5 silver shekels. And this is how things went for centuries. The Levites carried on the priesthood, but the parents of every firstborn male had to present their son in the temple as the firstborn, pay their 5 shekels, and they got their kid back. That's kind of the context and that's the background. Well, why is that necessary, and why is that important? Well, let's look at how St. Luke has constructed his narrative of the presentation. The scripture scholars, who like to study these things, so terribly detailed that they find some of the most nuanced details. And one of those nuanced details that they find in the gospel according to St. Luke is that he likes to write in circles using certain patterns. And in presenting the presentation of Jesus in the temple, he uses a pattern in literary terms that is known as A, B, B, A. That means you say A, then you say B, then you say something more about B, and then you close the loop by saying something again about A. Does that make any sense? Probably not, because it's so theoretical. It's a diagram that you're not making in your head. But here's how he writes it out. When the days were completed for their purification, according to the law of Moses, Mary and Joseph took Jesus up to Jerusalem. So there's A. The days of the purification are completed according to the law of Moses. Then there's B. Mary and Joseph took Jesus up to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. As is written in the law of the Lord, every male that opens the womb shall be consecrated to the Lord. There's B again. And then finally, St. Luke completes the narrative by saying something about A. And to offer the sacrifice of a pair of turtle doves and 2 young pigeons, according to the dictate, the law of the Lord. Well, this can be confusing if we don't know the literary pattern, because it sounds like that the 2 pigeons or the 2 turtle doves are being offered for the presentation of Jesus Christ. But that's not the case. I just told you what the law of Moses said. That if there was going to be a redemption, a buying back, that's 5 silver shekels. The 2 birds refer back to the time of the purification having been completed according to the law of Moses. This was for the Blessed Mother. Are you tracking so far? I know this is a lot, but it's important. All these things are important. So, let's continue on with the rest of the narrative presented by St. Luke, bearing in mind that St. Luke is the one who began his gospel by saying, I have investigated everything anew, and now I'm going to present it in an orderly fashion. He's presenting himself as a historian in the best sense of the word in the Greek tradition. And when you look at his attention to detail throughout the gospel, it doesn't sound like St. Luke to leave out something as important as the redemption of Jesus Christ as the firstborn son and a payment of 5 silver shekels to effectuate that transaction. He doesn't give us any indication that that happened. So what's the implication? The implication is that Mary and Joseph brought the child Jesus to the temple not to buy him back, but to present him as a priest. That's the implication. Now, if this is not true, hopefully we'll all find out in heaven whether or not this is what St. Luke is intending to communicate. But at least when you look at the law of Moses and the presentation of the Lord in the temple by his parents as a fulfillment of that law, and to leave out perhaps one of the single most important details, highly unlikely. right? Jesus Christ being presented to his Father as a priest. But what's astonishing about the priesthood of Jesus Christ, and what is so remarkable about it, is that at the same time as Mary and Joseph are presenting him for that office, they are also presenting him at the same time as the Lamb of sacrifice, aren't they? He's being presented as the Lamb of sacrifice. That it is only in the person of Jesus Christ do we see a priest offering a sacrifice while at the same time being the victim that is being offered. That's beautiful, isn't it? When you stop and think about it. It's beautiful. So now we turn our attention to today's first reading from the book of the prophet Malachi. What did Malachi say? Suddenly there will appear in the temple the Lord, the messenger of the covenant that you desire. Now, no one in a million years would have imagined that the Lord would appear in his temple in the form of a baby. But that's precisely what he did, isn't it? So humble, so unassuming. So humble and so unassuming. Truly showing himself to be that mustard seed, the smallest of all seeds that when planted becomes the largest of all plants, in which the birds of the air build their nests. A reference to the church. But Malachi is talking about the Lord appearing in his temple, and what is going to be his mission in coming into the temple? To restore the priesthood and to restore the right worship of God. Interesting, isn't it? Jesus would come to the temple to restore the priesthood and to restore the right worship of God. And as I already said, he did this perfectly and beautifully in his own body on the cross, revealing himself to be a priest, making the only offering that is acceptable to God, while at the same time being the offering that was slaughtered and being offered. Here's more or less how I want to conclude, having said that, is to look at the priesthood. And we know as Roman Catholics that we can look at the priesthood under two aspects. There is, of course, the ministerial priesthood. We all know what that is. But what is it that a priest is ordained to do? What is at the essence of the identity of a priest? It is one who offers sacrifice. And so the primary task of a priest is to offer the Eucharistic sacrifice of Jesus Christ, because that's what priests do. They stand in the person of Christ and offer the same offering, just in a different manner. They offer that same offering sacramentally that Christ once offered for all on his cross. But then there is still the common priesthood. Or we can say the priesthood of the baptized. That yes, when we were baptized, we were all incorporated into the kingly, priestly, and prophetic identity of Jesus Christ and share in that ministry, just in a different way. And so what does this mean for you enjoying the priesthood of the baptized? What is your first and most primary duty? To do what a priest does. That is to offer sacrifice. In other words, it is to assist at Sunday Mass. Right? It is to assist at Sunday Mass. I like the word assist better than other words. I go to Mass on Sunday. Really? I go to movies on Friday night. You see the difference? Now, the church talks about how the laity must participate in the Eucharistic sacrifice in a full and conscientious manner. That means you have to know what you're doing. But see, rather than saying that out loud, which is lengthier, and opting for an economy of words, that's what assist means. Right? It's better to say, I am going to assist at the Eucharistic sacrifice. Because it is with and through the ministerial priest that you offer to God the only sacrifice that is acceptable to him. The only sacrifice, the only form of worship that gives him perfect praise, perfect adoration, perfect gratitude, and obtains pardon for our sins, as we ask for our own good and the good of those that we love. Right? That's what we're doing. And that is why it is so utterly important, and imperative, that each and every Mass is celebrated and assisted at in the form presented by the Church, with no addition and no subtraction. Because this is, as the Church teaches, the source and summit of our faith. Is the Mass the source and summit of our faith because a lot of people got together and decided this is what Mass should look like? And this is what we should do? No, it is not a human contrivance. It is a divinely established institution. The Eucharistic sacrifice is the source and the summit of our faith, not because we have anything to do with it in terms of its creation, but precisely because it is the supreme priestly act of Jesus Christ himself.